When an array is created, each of the individual elements are assigned to particular locations in the array. After the array is created, sometimes we're interested in extracting some of the information at specific locations. This is called indexing the array. Sometimes we want to extract just an individual element of the array. Other times we're interested in extracting a subgroup of the elements in the array. Let's take a closer look at what this is all about. Here's an example of an arbitrary array or matrix. I've given the name of this array to be M. M is a collection or group of individual elements. These elements are arranged in a rectangular configuration. Therefore, if I'm interested in pulling out one or more of the elements that are found in M, I can address or index the position of that element based on its row and column number. As an example, if I'd like to pull out one element of M, I can use the name of the array with parentheses, and inside of the parentheses, use the row number, then a comma, and then the column number. Let's look at a couple examples of this. Let's say we're interested in working with an array that has the name of M and then a bunch of different numbers that we've grouped together to be the values of the array. Here, when I execute this command, for demonstration purposes, I've created a 5x5 array. It has 5 rows and 5 columns. Then I've added in a bunch of numbers to represent the elements of the array. Let's say that we're interested in extracting or pulling out one of the individual elements of this array. The syntax that we can use, so we're going to refer to the name of the array, and then inside of parentheses, put in the row number and the column number that we're interested in. So here, how about we do the first row and the first column. Close up the parentheses, execute this command. You can see that we've went and extracted the number 13. That's in row 1 and column 1. Similarly, let's go and find the number or element that's in row 4 in column 2. That's the number 1 because we go down to the 4th row and over to the 2nd column. You could do this for all the different individual elements of the array. One other thing that I'll show you that's very helpful built into the MATLAB programming language is we have a keyword that we can use to refer to the last row or the last column. This keyword is end. So if we're uncertain about, for our array, whatever the last number is for the row or column, we can use this keyword. Here, I'll put in M row 1, but then for the column number, I'm going to put in end. This is going to do is go and search for whatever the last column is and get it out. So here we're at row 1, and then the last column, we get the number 18. We could do a similar thing with the row number instead, where I'll type in end here and get out, how about the 3rd column? So it's the number 108. And believe it or not, it's perfectly acceptable to put in end, comma, end to say the last row and the last column. So we'll get out this number here in this position. Next, let me show you what you can do to extract multiple elements at the same time. Here, clear off my command window and print the array again so we can look at it. Let's say we're interested in getting out the first 3 rows that are over here in the 2nd column. So the numbers 6, -10, and 54. What I can do is use the syntax here where I put in 1 and then the colon operator and then 3. I'll put in a comma and say the 2nd column. Now when I execute this, I get out these 3 numbers. Remember my previous video about creating arrays, we can use this kind of syntax, 1, 3, that says start at 1 and go up until 3, going up by 1 each time. So we do 1, 2, 3. That's the first 3 rows, and then over here in the 2nd column. Similarly, we could do the same thing with columns. We could say, how about M4, comma, 3, colon end. So now we're going to start at the third column and go all the way over to the last column. So we get out the numbers in the fourth row, and then 3, 4, 5, all the way over to the end. We can get out both multiple columns and multiple rows at the same time. If we do this, where we do 2, colon 3, and 1, colon 3. So what this says is go to the second and third rows and get out columns 1, 2, and 3. So here we're actually going to get out a whole different array. We start right here. We get out a subset of the numbers. Also, one thing that's interesting is we can use the syntax where we skip numbers. So for instance, let's go back and look at what would happen if we did 1, colon 2, colon 5. And we'll look at how about just column 1. So what this is going to do is start out at row 1 and go up to row 5, but between each, go up by the number value of 2. So here we get out row 1, row 3, and row 5. All right, so that's another way that you can use this syntax from before on how we created arrays. Next, let me move on and show you another important thing about the colon operator. So here, clear off my command window and reprint this array so we can look at it. MATLAB uses the colon operator as a way to kind of help speed up and make our programming more efficient. So let's say we're working on an example where we want to get out all the rows. How about row 1 up through the last one? And we'll look at specifically column number 4. So that'll be all these numbers over here. Get out them like this. One way to speed up our programming, if we're interested in going from 1 all the way up to the end, is we can just insert the colon operator by itself. So here, I'll get rid of end, I'll get rid of 1. Now watch what happens. It's a more efficient way to get out all those elements. You just say, this colon operator is really saying, use all of the rows. We could do the same thing with columns. We could do something like this. How about we go in, we get out row 3 through 5, and we get all the different columns. So the colon operator here says, use all the columns available. So now we start at 53, we go up through 106, and we go all the way across for each of the columns. So this colon operator can be very helpful when we're trying to index everything in our array, whether that's the colon, or whether that's the rows, or the columns. As a last example, if we wanted to print the entire array again, you could do something like this, and it will get out all the rows and all the columns. Just another demonstration of how you can use this operator. So now we've gone through several examples to look at how we can extract or index an individual element from our array, or also groups of elements that make up part of our array. I also showed you how you could use the colon operator to make our code more efficient.